Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Lead, Sell, Grow the Human Experience podcast. This show is going to be all about a human experience plus some tips to make sure that your life is properly secured and your loved ones are well taken care of after you're gone. My guest today, Jessica Lynn Silva, is a powerhouse of attorney right now in Florida. She's got 4 degrees. She helps people with their wills, their trusts, probate. I mean, anything and everything. If I have any questions about any law, I call Jessica and she helps me out. She's absolutely incredible. But what most people don't know is that the woman who she is today has such an amazing, adventurous story that we're going to learn about as she went from a single mom to achieving all that she achieved. Jessica, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you so much, Eric. Gosh, after that intro, I want to go meet this person too. So thank you for all the kind words.
It's been a while since me and you met. The couple of things I forgot to mention is that Jessica is also, and I call her Jess, so I'm going to call her Jess. But if you Google her, Google Jessica Lynn Silva, she's also a voiceover artist and a real estate investor. Plus, now she's helping her husband start up a whole new clothing line. It's just, I don't even know where you get the energy from. Not only that, they have 3 kids, one grandchild. I mean, when you think you've had a long day or if you're busy, you gotta meet Jessica.
Thanks. I appreciate that. And yes, there are days that I'm like, okay, the world needs to go away and I just need to binge watch Netflix and just reassess. And I call it a refresh and recharge. And I highly recommend it to everybody.
Oh yeah, those days are so needed. All right, Jess, talk to us.
Okay. A
Take us
little bit
back.
about
Well, yeah, tell us about your background, like from that the single mom days to how are you
Sure.
handling life?
Okay, well, at 18, I did the typical thing that's every parent's fear and fell for a bad boy. Came to my senses, but I was already found myself as a single mom, knew I didn't want to be a statistic. So I went out and applied to go to college. When I did, I just went in to ask to be a secretary, anything just to get a degree. And I aced the entrance exams, and the counselor asked me if I ever thought of being a paralegal. I said, "What is that?" I had no idea. And she's like, "It's the right hand to an attorney." I said, "Sounds great. Sign me up." So that's the path how I started off. After there, a few years later, I did meet and marry my husband, who I'm still married to this day. I worked for attorneys at the time. So that did start 4 very long years of my life. My day started at 4 a.m. and ended about midnight, and it was a tough one. And I worked full time for a law firm, went to college at night, paid people to watch my son, and paid my parents to let me live in their pool house. So it was a long road. It was successful. I was exhausted, but I knew I wanted to make something of myself. Like, so you had a choice. You could give up or you could persevere. So I chose to persevere. When I met my husband, being that I worked for attorneys, they were kind enough to do the adoption for us. And so he's all my son has ever known as his dad. And then we added another brother and sister to the mix years later. So now our kids they're all about to have birthdays. So they're all about to be 26, 17, and 21. And then we have a 10-month-old granddaughter.
Wow, congratulations.
Thanks.
That's amazing. So the granddaughter, is that from your son? From the
Yes,
first one, the
he is
oldest one?
married to a Navy girl. So our oldest did serve 6 years in the Navy. I should preface, I am very pro-military, pro-police, because my father-in-law is retired military. My dad was retired military in FEMA. My husband's retired Air Force 26 years. Our oldest served in the Navy 6 years, and my daughter-in-law is still active duty Navy. So we are very big. And then now the oldest who got out the Navy, he's a firefighter. So I'm very into our services that serve our county and our state.
Yeah, no, thank you. Did were you always in Florida or did you move to Florida?
I was born in Fort Walton Beach, actually. My dad was at Eglin Air Force Base. And then we went over, I remember us being in Michigan, and I remember us being in Germany. And then after Germany, we actually spent 11 years in Georgia. He was out at Warner Robins. So that is what I call home. That's my growing up years from 7 to 18. So that's where I claim. And then I met and married my husband in North Carolina. And then Tampa, Florida was one of her first orders married. And then at full circle, it was kind of, that's right back where we are again. So we live and work and play in 2 counties in Florida, Brevard County and Hillsborough County.
Yeah, and it's paradise here. I love living in Florida.
I
Um,
love it.
what was your dream like when you were 18? No, well, I know you now. You're very ambitious. I'm assuming you were pretty ambitious as a young lady as well, maybe, or
I'm a
maybe.
dreamer. I love to read and I've always loved to dream. So in my head, I always tell stories and a good book. I was actually kind of known as your nerdy, boring friend. And I actually would get told that about friends growing up. They're like, you're no fun to play with because you just want to read books. I was like, that was my thing. So as I was growing up, but I'm also super responsible. So it's just more of if I have a goal, I don't want to age and get older and have regrets. So if something interests me or comes to mind, then I want to try it out. I'll either love it or I'll pivot and try something new, but at least I can say I tried. And so that is kind of the pivot, how I ended up with 4 degrees. I was on a path to be a psychologist. That's what I thought I would be. And then I kind of had an awakening that a psychologist meant you listen to other people's issues for about 9 to 10 hours a day. And I had listened to a John Maxwell. At that time, it was CDs. It was way before podcast existed. And so I was listening to one and he said how he was on that path and he would have someone come into him. They would tell him their issues. He would tell them a plan of action, come back and see him. They'd come back and see him and they'd just revert and regurgitate all the issues again. And he said, well, did you implement any of the taskers I told you to do? And they're like, no, no. And he had an awakening that some people have no intention of changing. They just want someone to listen to them vent. And I was like, oh no, that's not going to work for me. And that's where he shifted gears and became more of a motivational speaker. And, he wants to invest his time and energy into those who want to embrace it and move on with it. And that was kind of like, oh yes, that would, because I'm one, if you tell me your issues, I am already going to think of who do I have in my network, my plan, my thing. How can I fix your issue? How can I help you? So if you just want to vent, it'll just wear me out. So yeah, so that's kind of where I have a master's in that path and then switched gears and didn't go on for my doctorate. I went on for a law degree instead.
Wow. So, okay, there's so much there. What's the difference, or help me understand? You said when I don't wanna have regrets down the road, right? So when I have an idea, I just go for it. What's your process for that? So idea comes in. Can you give us an example of when that last thing was for you that you just had an idea and you went for it?
Me personally, I'm a Christian, so I give a lot of it to faith. So I go a lot off gut instinct and promptings. So I joke and tell my husband, I knew 2 of our military orders we'd have before they were ever even on the radar. I knew we were going to end up there. In homes, 2 of our homes, actually 3 of our homes that we purchased, I literally have purchased off a gut instinct. And so I have a very intuitive spirit and I like it. And then, so if something interests me, the real stock market terrifies me. It's on my to-do list to learn. The real estate always just makes sense. Like it is tangible. You can hold it. You can either buy it, flip it, sell it, remodel it, turn it into it, provide a home for someone for a meantime, it increases in value, and then decide what you're going to do next. So that was just a common sense approach to me. My husband was terrified the first time I tried doing it. On one of our orders, we left Florida to go all the way to California. We had orders to California, and that was the very first time we were renting out a home, and it was absolutely terrifying. Now it's like no big deal, but then it was like, what am I doing? I have no idea what I'm doing. Oh my gosh. And so, but I don't let fear stop me. And that's what I'll preface too, is I am not an outgoing person. People think I am. I'm probably most perfectly one of those personalities that is an extroverted introvert. I am very much an introvert, a shy, like the type, but I also don't like excuses. So it's kind of one of those, I will smile, pray, and dive in and see what doors open up. And I learned that very much in law school, because in law school, they will make or break you. Like there's no trying, you just can't say. So I like to explore and I like to see possibilities. I am a cautious risk taker. So I'm not a throw it all to the wind and see what happens. I will research. I will find people and pray for people to come into my path that are well ahead of me so I can mentor and learn from them. And then I'll just go off gut instinct. And then I'll talk to my husband. My husband and I are a team. So we are very big on we don't do anything without the other being in agreement. So that's something that isn't in our family. And I move fast. He moves more methodically. So that has caused a couple missed boats and a couple arguments, I must say.
All right. Wow. Well, thanks for sharing that. We actually met as we're both in a real estate, some kind of real estate seminar on real estate investing.
Well, I was there with my bestie, Mariana. So she's local to Tampa too. She's married to an ER doctor and they're one of our best friends, their family. And her and I have the same adventurous go-getter spirit. She's amazing. And yes, you were at our table and we liked you from the first moment we all had lunch.
It was great. Yeah. No, you guys took me in. I was up there by myself. I really appreciate that. And here we are, a year and a half later, probably, I don't even know if it's been that. Yeah. But like friends, I would call you a friend now, Jess. So go to seminars, guys, meet people. Even if the speakers suck, you're there for, you can walk away with a like-minded individual who becomes a friend and potentially a business partner down the road. Who knows? All right, tell us about the law that you practice. What's the difference between, probate and wills and trusts?
Okay. Yeah, law is a very big field. And that's one way I give back is I will have high school students or things like that will come and say, I think I want to be a lawyer and I have no idea what niche. So I will take them for coffee. I'll get an idea. I'll tell them about my branch. And then if it's not something that's interests them, I'll line them up with another attorney who isn't something that they might have interest. Because I'm a big believer, try it. Like, don't just think, yes, I want to be a lawyer and now go delve into school and take it all and pass a bar. And it's a lot of work. So go shadow, intern, make sure this is the niche you want because you have time to pivot. If anything, it's a win-win. You meet new people. Someone can write you a letter of recommendation that you are a great asset. And if, yes, this is it, or no, there's no way I even want that road. Let me go try something else. And you save so much time and energy to do so. So I will offer that a lot and they take me up on it. I am in estate planning and probate. So I'm known as, it can be more transactional. We can definitely turn into litigious, which is where the wars you hear about, all the court proceedings. My court proceedings can on the day-to-day more be like asking for homestead orders, granting exemptions and getting things for my clients. Otherwise, we can turn where they go fighting over who's going to be personal representative and control and who's going to be in control of the money and the power, who thinks they're the beneficiary or should have been a beneficiary and they were left out. Or there's fights over, are we even going to admit this will? It was undue influence. It was duress. It was not done appropriately. Like there's a lot of reasons. Wealth and power changes people. So I have seen the kindest people act totally different. And so it definitely is it's something. And so you have to take it seriously. Backing it up, I tell my clients, when I have you living and mentally competent alert, I want to set you up for success. So when we're setting you up for success, we are doing so in a way where you don't need me or you need me very minimally later. That's the goal. Avoid probate, have everything set up where it seamlessly goes to who your loved ones are. That can be friends, charity, family, whoever you like. There in Florida, there's only certain caveats if you're married or have minor children. There's a couple of caveats that you can't. But other than that, if you have prenups, postnups, your children are adults, you have the freedom to leave who you want to, including a family dog, although I don't recommend that, but legally you could. And then you'll have a whole line of people wanting to be guardian of the dog because then they get to be in control of the assets. So you'll see a lot of stories. There's a lot of historical facts that are really cool, just based on it. It is a topic that everyone thinks they don't need. So like 67% of Americans don't realize how easily they could have avoided a chaotic mess. And that is why I do a ton of speaking engagements. I just spoke twice last week to a local apartment complex and to a local financial firm. And that is my way of giving back to the community, is just providing knowledge. Like literally attorneys start to get a bad name where they seem unapproachable, or they're going to charge you for every minute time you ask them a question, or they're just going to lead you down a path of things you don't need. I want to bust through all of those. And so I try to set the light of it's just a conversation. And it is very cost effective to put things in place when you do so now. And it is very chaotic and expensive and destroys relationships when you wait and do nothing. And then you're just trying to do damage control and you're going against the statute. So you're trying to do, it might or might not work out to the way you wanted it to. So that's so it's a very important role that people don't realize the value of until you tell them. So kind of like what I'm doing today, just kind of informing people. When you mention the word estate plan, they automatically just think will or trust. They're two different entities. The whole probate was created for the benefit of creditors. So that right there tells you it was not created for you or your loved ones or anything else. It is the creditor's last-ditch effort to attach to your assets on their way to the beneficiaries, and your beneficiaries will get what's left over. So that is why you hear the words avoid probate. It's scary, it's expensive, it's long. That's where that comes from.
Wow.
There's ways. Yeah, so there's ways to avoid probate. There's ways to do so by going through like a trust and things like that. And then there's ways to do it without actually having to go through the need of a trust. So that's kind of a conversation I have with my clients, and we go over what is the best fit for them.
That's really cool. Do you have any stories, without naming your clients, that, you know, would seem simple on the outside, but were more complex when you actually dove in?
Title is a really big one. When you take title to property, it is very common nowadays for like people in their 70s and 80s to not want to be alone. So they'll buy a house with like a really close friend who's also in their 70s and 80s. And they'll buy a house together and be each other's roommate. And they'll forget to put the words joint tenants with rights of survivorship if they had meant for it to go to each other when one passes. And so there's been several probates that I've handled where forgetting that one thing has now terrified a little lady in her 80s, because she now owns half her home with 3 strangers she never knew, the children of the other person, and they now have the right to force a partition to either force her to buy them out of her house or to go to court and force a sale to the open market. And she finds herself all of a sudden with no house based on
So what do
some
you
simple
do?
words.
Like, what can you do? Yeah.
In those situations, you have to go, if you didn't put the words joint tenants with rights to survivorship, then in Florida, if you only have 2 names and they're not married, the court feels you meant tenants in common. Tenants in common means you just own your portion. So if there's 2 names, you each own it 50-50. So you need to have a will that states where you want your 50% going to. You can still leave it to your roommate if you wanted to, but if you didn't leave a will specifying that, they have no idea. So if you don't, we go what's called the intestate statute. And that's where Florida says, okay, you didn't take the time to leave us a will or trust, so we're just going to assume we knew who you wanted to inherit. And that'll be where you married at time of death. No. Did you have biological children? Yes. I have actually done one where a gentleman had multiple children across multiple ladies and then terminated his parental rights, but forgot one. So we had to hire a private investigator to track him down to let him know he owned a piece of a house with someone that he had no idea. That situation, he was lucky enough where he was kind enough to just quit claim his interest over to this person. But there was a different circumstance, the 3 I was telling you, where this little old lady now owned with 3, and they did not want to. They wanted the money because there's value. You're inheriting an asset, so there's usually value to it, and people don't usually just want to leave money on the table when they realize they now have power to collect.
Wow. Okay. So, I would like to think we're young parents, we're early 40s, 2 kids, one's 13, one is 11, well, 10, sorry, he just turned 10. What should we have in place to protect us, and why?
In your circumstance, your children are minors. So you definitely want different things. If you're just having a will package, then you would want a will that has testamentary trust language within the will. It's almost like having a mini trust in your will that states who's guardian of my children if my wife and I both pass, who's guardian of the children themselves, and who's guardian of the assets the children are inheriting. And then you take it further and say, when can the kids have their assets? Do they get them all as soon as they hit 18? Because sometimes you're worth multi-millions, and a lot of people don't want their 18-year-olds inheriting millions of dollars. And so they'll put precautions in place that you either get a portion, you get a monthly distribution, or you wait for everything until you're 21, 25. You're in control. So when I'm speaking, like if I was talking to you and your wife, you literally, my role is to hear you out, hear your goals, your desires, your assets, what you own, where you want them to go, and then put that into legal enforceable documents on your behalf. That is what my role is.
Love it. We actually have a trust, and I remember, I remember sitting down wondering, like let's say we pass, when do I want this to go to them?
Yes.
I might have placed like 31 or
Yes.
when married, right? Whichever comes first.
Yes.
That's one of the provisions that's in the trust.
I
No,
have lots of parents that want to control from the grave as much as the law will allow them to.
it's an unexpected gift down the road. Let's call it that. Uh,
Yes.
what happens if somebody doesn't have that in place? What does the state, or I guess each state's different, but what does Florida say? Where do your assets go? Let's say you have a house that's not paid off. Let's say you have a car that's not paid off. Let's say you had credit card bills and you have some savings and 401ks and investments as well. Where does that go with no trust, no will, no nothing?
It'll follow the intestacy statute. And those are great questions. An intestacy statute will be where you married, when you passed, yes or no. If not, if it's a no, did you have children? Where it gets dicey is it could be, yes, I'm married. So then when it goes to the next question, do you have children? Yes. Were they biological to the both of you? Because if that's a no, now it just got divided, where your spouse gets half and your blended family gets half, which sometimes that is not what they wanted at all.
Ooh.
So it delves into, and blended families are very, very popular these days. And people, some like their stepchildren and step parents, and some cannot stand them. They're estranged. So there's all the kinds of dynamics that go on. But the court doesn't know that, and they don't want to delve into all that. So they're like, you either took the time to go prepare these documents, or we're just going to decide for you. The other question, when you mentioned your assets and creditors, that is one of the big things. There's secured creditors and unsecured. Secured is if you're inheriting a house, but it has a mortgage, you get the house, but it's coming with the mortgage too. So you can either refinance, pay it off, sell it, whatever you'd like, keep going with payments. There is a federal law that if it's going to a blood heir, they have the right to assume the loan. So a lot of people sometimes don't realize. So that is something that helps. So you don't have to so much qualify to refinance or do anything. You get it. The same with a car. If you're getting the car, and it has a loan, you are going to, like, you don't get to keep the car without paying or establishing for the loan itself, which is a lot of times when I probate, that's the first thing we'll do is find out what kind of car it is, and is it upside down or does it have equity? If it's upside down, we're just going to tell them to come get it. The beneficiary doesn't want it, come repo it, and then you guys can file a creditor claim for the difference. Credit card and medical bills, those are unsecured creditors. So that is actually how some people get away with getting checking and savings and everything in a home and still not having to pay their parents' credit cards or medical bills, because it's a creditor and it goes through the probate process. So if you never open probate, there's never anything for the creditor to attach to. And the creditors have a 2-year statute of limitations from death. So if the creditor can open probate themselves, like if nobody's opening it and they want it and they know there should be an asset, and they can try, but it's very rare that they do. And so they're just going to wait and they'll file a claim and see. If they don't file a claim within the statute of limitations, or in my case, when we do open probate, we bring that 2 years down to 90 days because we publish in the paper and we enter what's called a creditor period. But then what they have to do is file a claim with the court under that case. And then some attorneys, such as myself, we object to the claim. So when we object, that puts the burden back on them that they have 30 days to file an independent civil action and prove they're a valid creditor. If not, they're forever barred. So, and they rarely do. It's not worth the time, energy, and money. Because from our stance as well, as we don't know for sure and proof that this is a valid creditor claim. The person has passed away that could speak to it. So we're all running here going off of what we do have in front of us. For my clients that I referred to earlier, like my older clients, they'll come in and they've lost a spouse, they're single, they're in their 70s. They only own one house, a homestead. And Florida is very protective of homestead. You can have one home across the nation that's your homestead. And Florida does not want a bunch of homeless people, so it's protected from creditors. You still have to pay your mortgage. And if you ask for a new roof or got a water softener, those kinds of things, they're secured. So you have to pay those. But you're not going to lose your home because of a judgment or a credit card bill or medical bills or things like that. So when it's going to flood, that's what's called an order determining homestead status. That's where I will petition the court and say, Your Honor, we have a home. It was the homestead of the decedent and it's going to blood heirs. So that creditor protection passes to my blood heirs. So could you please sign my order? And that counts as a transfer of title, and any creditors still can't touch the house and it goes to them. If they had done that and then also had named beneficiaries on their checking and savings and life insurance, a beneficiary is title. Title trumps a will. So if you named a beneficiary, we never have to go through probate. It doesn't even matter what your will said if it contradicted. If you named a beneficiary, that counts as title. Title trumps will. We don't open probate for it. So creditors don't attach to it. And that is how your family can end up with the life insurance, your investments, your checking, your savings. And the way you do a home is called a ladybird deed. And I can go into that in a little bit, but that's kind of how you can literally avoid probate without even having to go through the expense of a trust in certain circumstances.
Yes. Pretend I'm 9. Explain
Okay.
probate to me.
Well, one helpful thing is some of my clients like to hear me talk and some are visual. So I do have a free resource called Estate Planning Basics for the Florida resident, and I'm happy to send it to anyone that ever wants it. It's more pretty. My husband designed it. He's a graphic artist. And then in it, that will kind of break down what I say and summarize it in a way that makes more sense to people. But if you are 9, it's pretty much, if you have your checking and savings, name a beneficiary, name the loved one you want to have this. If your toy goes away, who's allowed to come get your toy? If you do that, then it doesn't even matter. The government doesn't get to say who gets it because you've already said who gets it.
What is probate? Is that what probate is? You saying who's getting
Probate is bringing a will to life. So if you've named a beneficiary, if you've already named who gets your toy, then there's no need to open probate because their assets have already gone where they need to go. And so creditors can't touch them. They don't need me. We don't need a court proceeding. We don't need probate.
Got it. Okay. And do you want to avoid probate? Obviously, you want to avoid probate.
I want to avoid probate. It's costly and it's long. It's in the thousands and thousands of dollars, and it's about 6 months to a year. And if you are like some of my clients who own multiple properties across states, even a little city at times, mineral rights, then it can drag on even further. I have one, or if there's a lawsuit going on because you died under strange circumstances, you were on a cruise and there was some kind of malpractice and the cruise line's at fault. There's a case we did on that. There's a case where a doctor's negligence is involved and there's a lawsuit, and we have to stay open why that lawsuit plays itself out so that we know if more money is coming through the estate. Car accidents is a big one.
Oh, I'm sure. So attorneys, they're licensed per state, right?
Correct. We have to pass the bar in every state we want to practice. So I can practice and handle cases anywhere in the state of Florida. I can't step outside Florida because I've never gone and tried to pass the bar in any other state but Florida.
But if they have properties in Tennessee and in Texas, that you can still do that with a Florida?
I can handle anything they own in Florida. So what happens when you pass away is where was your primary place of residence? Where did you vote? What's on your driver's license? All those things. What did you consider home? That is called your primary place of residence. And that is where you open probate. So I can have a client who lives in Brevard County, but actually just rented an apartment in Brevard County, but that's their primary place of residence where they vote and everything. But they owned in another county in Florida, and then they owned in other states. Other states, you open what's called an ancillary probate. So you have to open it primary, and then you have to go open it in an ancillary, which is exactly why I recommend when I have clients at the beginning, let's set you up for success. We need to either name beneficiaries or we need to have a trust because it'll already have paid it for itself multiple times over. Because if you don't, and you own across state lines, then you are going to be paying for multiple probates because you have to hire an attorney in Florida, such as myself, and then you got to go hire an attorney in North Carolina, Tennessee, New York, wherever else that you own real estate to. And that gets really expensive and time consuming.
What happens with children if they're underage and parents get into a car accident and are gone?
If you had come to see me, we would have set you up for success with something called a pre-need guardian for minors. And it literally says, if my husband and I are not, or spouse and I are not able to, we're both incapacitated or we're both passed away, here is our order of priority, who's to immediately have access to our children. I have some clients that are out of the country. So we actually have a plan in place. This person is to immediately have access. Then it's to go to this family member for the meantime until the permanent family member can arrive from out of country to get there. That's what allows that they don't have to end up with strangers or the police or foster care, anything like that because you've already put it in place. Because if you don't have a plan in place, everything's got to go before a judge in a court hearing and figure out a plan, which that does not happen. You can't pass away tonight and you're already seeing the judge tomorrow morning. Like it's more of a process. It's more involved. People have to find someone to advocate and speak on their behalf. And so that's kind of why these documents can immediately be put into place.
What happens with the kids if it goes to court? Like what happens in the meantime if there's no document, right? Let's say they find the kids, parents, just were in a horrible accident. The kids are there, they're young. What do they do first?
They usually take them and then they'll go into some kind of care system, and then they've got to find, and that's where you end up in the short-term foster care or pre-guardians, or because they can't find family members. But the other piece about trying to find family members is you don't always get along with your family members. So that's kind of where there's no clear path and clear-cut information that states whether or not you even got along with these people, or whether you had like even we did when I worked for a judge for 4 years, we did family, criminal, and civil. There's a lot of sexual abuse that goes on. There's a lot of things. I always tell people we're leaving documents to help the judge help you. We're leaving them cookie crumbs so that if it ever did get to the point that you've got two family members fighting in guardianship court over both wanting to take control of the children and the assets and the money, and one is just eloquently, their attorney is just advocating and doing such a great job at making them look like they're amazing, but the judge has a document in front of them that I've prepared that says this person is never to serve as guardian of my children. Then the judge is like, oh, well, that person's a smooth talker, but I got something that says there's more going on because the people before they died said very clearly that was the last person on earth. And I have that many times in my documents that we will list. It's to the extent where they have asked me to specifically say these family members are never to serve. They're never to be my agent. They're never to be my personal representative. They're never to be guardian of my children.
Wow. That's mind blowing. So is this something like super expensive? Like if it's a young family, right? They just had a baby, they're in their mid-20s, early 20s, and they might be thinking, okay, trust, when I used to hear the word trust, I'm thinking, millionaire status, like regular people like me, why would I need a trust? But who is it really for? And what's a price?
In my head, trust, I'm not an attorney that will push you to a trust when you come to see me. In my head, we're talking trust. If you tell me you own property across state lines, like especially if you own in Georgia, North Carolina, because they do not allow transfer on death deeds or ladybird deeds, other little caveats that you can sometimes get away with. And also if you have special needs children or spendthrift, or there's just family members they're so sweet, but they literally have no concept of money. And they're either easily swayed or easily believe people, or just don't know the value of a dollar and don't know they'd mismanage everything you handed them. Then you're already in trust territory. They already pay for themselves multiple times over. You're avoiding probate. It's a deterrent against creditors, and you're controlling and putting more parameters in place that help protect things. So that's where they've already paid for themselves. As for costs, like in my firm, a trust package today it includes trust, because when you do a trust, you also then get to choose a husband and wife. Do you want a joint trust or do you want separate trust? And we go into conversations of the pros and cons of that and see if they want it or not. So there's no extra fee with me if you want separate or joint. And then you still have wills. They're called pour over wills. And then you have a healthcare surrogate, living will, pre-need guardian, durable power of attorney, pre-need guardian for minors. And then the only way the trust is even worth anything is you have to put your assets into the trust. So for your real estate, that's called a quitclaim deed to the trust, where you literally make the trust the owner of your property and yourselves as the trustees. And everywhere you own property, an attorney of that state needs to do those quitclaim deeds. So I always handle all the real estate for my clients in Florida. And then if they own in other states, I give them the appropriate 2 documents they need to show someone in the other states to get it in there as well. So a whole package for that and all the time and the signing and everything is $3,100 with me for a couple, and it's $2,100 for a single person. But I also offer military, police, and firefighter discounts. And then if you wanted to compare the value of that compared to a probate, your probate is going to be anywhere from $7,500 to $15,000, if not more. And that's how attorneys charge, because in Florida, an attorney can charge 3 ways. You can charge an hourly fee, you can charge flat fee, or you can charge statutory, which is 3% of all the value. So to give you an example, what I had charged a client $3,500 to do, they had a Sarasota attorney charge them $87,000. I charged a flat fee. The Sarasota attorney charged them statutory. And they had already done that with the Sarasota attorney before they found me. It was a different family member they were hiring me for. They had to do the same procedure for a different family member out of Sarasota. Her jaw, I had to pick her jaw up off the ground. She was shocked at the huge difference. But he legally could. You have the freedom to choose 3 ways and you say how you're going to do it. I don't adjust it based on the wealth. It's a flat fee across the board. So they can tend to be, with the old firm I worked for, the average is about $15,000. I'm much more cost effective. I'm pretty much almost half that, but that can give you a figure that you pay $3,100 for a trust, or you wait and you pay $15,000 for a probate, and your beneficiaries might not get it all because you're going to go through the creditor process, and if creditors file claims, they get paid before your beneficiaries get things. And then it's going to be more than that if you own across other states, because now you have to go do ancillary probate. So that was just your Florida probate. Now you got to go hire attorneys in all the other states you own real estate and pay for them too. If all your real estate was in a trust, say I did a Florida trust for you and we put all your properties in your trust, then it's as simple as you're in control of the ship. The court doesn't care. The court never even sees the trust. And that is simply, you can empty out your trust and we get it to where it needs to go via trustee distributive deeds. So that instead of doing probates in all the states, we simply go do deeds to take the real estate out of the trust and give it to where it needs to go. And it's very simple. It's like you're talking about a few $100s versus multiple thousands of dollars.
Wow. So $3,100, pretty much anybody who has a kid should have something in place, a will, a trust, something, and they should come talk to you.
And wills are half, like will packages are half that. So you're saving even more money. So that's like for my older clients, after I see what their assets are and I ask them, do you have any intention of buying more property, even across Florida? Because again, you only get the one protected homestead. So even if all your property is in Florida, but you own more than one, your homestead's protected, but your others are left a little more vulnerable. So that is where I always highly recommend that you either have a revocable living trust and you put all your properties into it because it's a deterrent against creditors, and then also have an umbrella insurance policy, because an umbrella insurance policy will pick up where the things are, and it's very inexpensive. It's like $600 a year premium for $1 to $2 million in coverage. It's a wonderful asset. Some will take it further if you're dealing in the real estate world, and they'll form LLCs for each. That comes with its own pros and cons. So that's kind of a deterrent. But I have some clients, they'll have 11 properties and they're like, Jess, I do not feel like maintaining it. I want you to create me a trust. I want us to put all the properties in the trust. I'll get umbrella insurance and I'll call it a day. And that's how I want to handle it for now, where I reassess. So it's always based on different circumstances in a conversation.
Wow, you're a wealth of knowledge, Jess. Thank you. What advice do you have for a young single mom who's just trying to make it out there?
She needs to have, most importantly, people always hear the words wills and trusts, but they forget about the power of attorneys.
No,
Empowerment.
take your lawyer hat off. I want
Mhm.
you to put the single mom hat back on.
Okay.
Single mom who's struggling, right? She makes less than what her bills are every month. What can she do to recreate herself to become like a Jessica?
You mean college and informative wise or setting up for success? What?
Yeah, how does somebody like that who's probably stuck feels like there's nothing available for her?
Mhm.
How does someone like that get out of that hole and start working towards achieving success?
Well, first you sit down and you think of what does not always feel like work? Like what is it that you enjoy to do? And that if you were even had won the lottery, you'd still want to do it. And then you second question you'll ask yourself, I like to say write down top three because sometimes the first one is just a pipe dream that just might not be super feasible. Then I say, out of those three, what are actually lucrative? Like you do a little research and find out what the going rate is at person's. How do I obtain it and achieve to get there? And what is it going to pay me once I get there? Then you go out and see nowadays our world is starting to offer a lot. In addition to Pell Grants, they've got a lot of opportunities or wealthy people that want to give opportunities to those behind them that are in situations like that. So I know in Melbourne side in Brevard County, we have something called We Venture, and they love to help, and it's free. And that's where they help any women, and it doesn't even have to be women, but anyone trying to create business, they help you literally write your business plan, create your path, tell you, and then they'll connect you with people in the community who are already where you want to go. So that is what the next step I would do is actually just start doing a little research and talk to some local colleges and find out. From there, now that I've had the attorney hat, I can never turn it off. So then it's making sure you have something written down that if something happens to me, who do I want to take care of my baby? Because that's typically not going to be the biological father a lot of times. And even if his parental rights aren't terminated, then he'll get the child, but he'll never be able to get your assets if you've already specified otherwise. So at least he doesn't get the child and all the money that's on the child's behalf. That way you can protect it. And there's different circumstances in those regards. And from there, it's a little, I'm a big believer in nothing's impossible. Like it truly isn't. I don't know if you know Marie Forleo, but she wrote that book, Everything is Figure Outable.
I
And
love
I'm
it.
really, really into that. And I even drive my staff crazy because I have a staff of three and then a fourth independent contractor. And when they'll start to be like, the printer's acting up something, I'm like, everything is figure outable. Like, let's research, let's find an answer, let's make a phone call, like something. You don't just sit here and complain. You put your heads together and we come up with a solution. So I
I
strongly
believe in that too. Actually, on the back of this shirt, which is Relentless Goal Achievers, it's a coaching group that I started to get people who are growth minded in the same room, have challenges that we can work out together and help them break through whatever those boundaries are that are holding them back. On the back of this shirt, it says everything you want is possible for you.
Yes, I love it. It's just more of like, what are you willing to give and how much hard work do you want to invest? Like, but it is there. It's just the cost that it might take to get there. Are you willing to pay it? So that's the part that you just have to figure out. But that's where teams like yourself and groups like that are amazing because we're human. We get tired and we get a little bit of lazy sometimes, or we forget our path and we need that horizon to be replaced and remind us of our goals. And that's perfect to be around like-minded individuals to say, you got this. Go take a day, refresh, and come back.
Absolutely. Jess, what's your dream? What dream are you working on next?
Well, I'm still in the fire of doing this. So we own a few homes and we're looking at another one that I would like to make an offer on. Voiceover, a friend of mine is a director. They have a company here in Tampa. They have an audio program and I'm one of the voices in their season 3. And they're also coming out with a Star Trek parody now too. But my friend Alicia is one of the owners and Jonathan is her other co-owner and he lives out in LA and he's in New Move. So they are going to be training and enhancing my voiceover artist capabilities. So I'm still one of those people that Like I have my law degrees, my 4 degrees, my real estate license, my voiceover, and I still invest in coaches or use a real estate agent, sometimes co-work with them when I do things. Like I am still one of those big believers, and the team effort is amazing. Like I know just enough to be dangerous in a lot of situations, and then I love to bring another like-minded to kind of cross off and learn from and expand upon. So I'm working on that, working on a real estate, and then sharpening my skills of my law firm, because my law firm covers the whole state of Florida, but we have 2 offices in Satellite Beach and Tampa. So this year has been a goal to just really put some TLC into the Tampa office and build it bigger.
Love it. 2 questions for you. One, why are you doing voiceovers?
Because that's fun. It started when I was in law school. I was an extra on TV shows and a voiceover, and law is insanely stressful. You're advocating, people are putting their money and trust and energy and effort into you helping them figure out solutions, or in the case of litigious, where we're literally battling out a battle. So it takes a lot of strategy and energy and mentalness. And so voiceover and being on TV shows as an extra, it kind of releases all that. It's just fun. It's exciting. It's still a goal and a purpose, but it's entertaining people instead of all of the advocating and fighting.
Love it. And the second one, how do you find time?
That I make time. And then if it gets to be too much where I can tell I'm starting to burn out a little, I'll just take a day and just the whole world's going to have to go away. Like I'll deal with those fires tomorrow, but I'm not dealing with them today.
What do you do during that day?
During the day, it depends. I'll either relax by the pool and read a great book because I love books, or I'll listen to podcasts. I am very much into every day. My morning routine is always, if I'm going to have great days, is going to be a devotion, a podcast, yoga, and things like that before I even get started. And if I do, I'm in control of the day. If I miss those things, and if I miss those in a pattern of several days, or it starts to turn into a couple weeks, it's not good. So those are always key. For fun, it's always something by the water. I love the ocean. I love a good book. I love quality time with great friends, like things like that. Or I'll do how we met you, Mariana, and I'll be like, hey, let's go do this venture together. Let's go see what we can learn, and we get some girl bestie time, and we get to move forward in our lives. So we'll do things like that.
That is so cool. What book are you reading now, or is on your list of next books?
The one I'm reading right now is probably not appropriate for podcasts, but it's called Rich Bitch. So
Rich Bitch. Okay, cool.
Yes.
Are you the
Yes.
author?
I am not the author. No.
Where's-
One day.
This is the one I'm reading now, The Ultimate
I love
Coach.
that. I've never
Highly
heard.
recommend
That's
it.
awesome. Okay.
Highly recommend it.
Let's check it
I'm
out.
1 week in. This book has like, I don't know, 460 pages. 1 week, I'm on page 317. Can't put it down.
Good job. Where
Yeah.
did you purchase it?
Was that
Where did you purchase it?
Amazon? I usually
Okay.
get it on Amazon. Yep.
Perfect.
Steve Hardison, The Ultimate Coach. I got introduced to the world of Steve Hardison, the
Mhm.
statistical world, by Laban, one of my podcast guests a few weeks back, and I dove in. He's like, "Have you ever heard this guy? You should go check him out." Send me a YouTube video, and it just took me down a rabbit hole. And then I found this book, bought it, and it's just been incredible. So
Awesome.
highly recommend it.
Okay.
Jess, what should I add? What were you hoping I would ask that I didn't ask you?
You cover so many things, and that's the thing about law. It can be so complicated that part of the goal is to not dumb it down, but to bring it down to a language that is just easily understandable and digestible for the average American who does not eat, live, and breathe law like I do.
Mhm.
So it is crucially important the minute you turn 18 to just have an estate plan. Like it literally is. It allows and speaks who you want to talk on your behalf if you can't speak for yourself. And everyone I always hear, they don't think they have enough assets, but you do. Even a homeless person has assets. Whether the value might range up and down, but you do own them, and you do have a voice to say who you want to get them if you would just take a few minutes to do so. So it will save yourself so much heartache and chaos later. And as you age and as you grow and add to your family, it becomes even more and more crucially important and valuable. But as for the particular question, you covered a lot of gamuts. I like to remind people that life is a fun journey. You get one. So you don't want to burn yourself out or become such a workaholic that you forget to even enjoy it. But at the same time, you don't want to get so lazy that it passes you by and you didn't get to instill knowledge and wisdom into everybody that you could have either. So you want to leave an impact. So I think there's a great happy medium to having some fun and then working hard and playing hard at the same time.
Well, you're definitely leaving an impact. I think you let me think about a ton of things today. And if you're listening and you're over the age of 18 and you haven't thought about an estate plan, reach out to Jessica. You can Google Jessica Lynn, Lynn Silva, Silva. Or Jess, how else can they reach you?
The law firm is jessicalynnlaw.com.
JessicaLynnLaw.com.
Yes, that'll take you straight to my website, and that'll give you all our contact information, and you can even schedule yourself on my schedule now if you would like to, or you can call my office and talk to my friendly staff.
Awesome. Thanks for being here, Jess. You added tremendous value. There's going to be links, by the way, here in the show notes for you to click on and just get right to Jessica's website. And also, Relentless Goal Achievers, check it out. You're not going to be disappointed. And I'll see you on the next episode, my friend.
Bye.